what happens when you mix equal parts creatives with Mayo and creators. You get the Mayo Museum. Dakota Rae Lowe from Edelman joins me to discuss what that all means starting now.
Mayo creators. I'm like, say less. That's all you gotta tell me.
Dakota, thank you so much for joining again. I want to preface this entire thing by saying I don't consume mayo. I don't like it. I don't want it in my life. And yet for some reason I know. And then I see this Mayo Museum and I'm like, this is unhinged. This is wonderful. I need to know all of the things about it. You can start anywhere in the process, even go back to the Pizza Museum or other things. But how the hell does this happen? And how do we get all of this Mayo-y goodness? Why did I say that? I don't want to say that. Ugh, gross. But yes.
We're gonna clip Mayo-y goodness, and I'm gonna use that for my sizzle.
Great.
Yes, well, I work on Hellman's, which sits under Unilever, and have been on this brand for the last year and a half, and has been the best, most fun ride. Like, I love the clients, I love the brand, and now, like, I am a bona fide Mayo girl. Like, you should see the Mayo I have in my fridge at the moment. It's pretty ludicrous. It would probably gross you out if you're not a Mayo guy.
No.
If you've been following along, we've just been doing these as the earned agency, like these activations for them. And so we've gotten wackier and weirder, and, we're in the attention economy too. So how do we get people to care about Mayo in the spaces that they're already in, and also make sure that brand messaging comes through? So we do always start with a very brand-led brief that then we inject like social listening, consumer sentiment, consumer problems into, and then we get to something wacky. We don't typically start with the wacky unless one of us has a really, harebrained idea and we're like, we just need to do this thing. Sometimes that does happen, but so it all is very rooted in the brand, the overarching strategy, and just who we're going after. But so I feel like when I came on, the first big one was the Mayo cologne. We did with Will Levis last year. We launched Parfum de Mayonnaise, Will Levis number 8, which I still have. It smells great. I don't wear it on a daily basis, but for special occasions, of course, the Shorty Awards. But so I feel like we did some fun stuff as Hellman's as a brand before that, but I think this was the entry point of we can be weird and funny and do things that feel a bit absurd, and people are going to buy in and pay attention. And that one specifically hit the football community, with Will Levis being a Tennessee Titan. It broke on with Adam Schefter, the reporter in the sports world, and then, hit on ESPN. We landed on their Instagrams. That was okay, we hit a community, we did something wacky, this is working. And that energy, that vibe has sort of continued. So this summer, we not only did the Mayo Museum in New York with Kareem Rama, but we also did a Mayo wedding in Las Vegas. And we had Manny Mayo, the mascot, Mary, the most tender, loving couple we could find, who they're lovingly known as the Saucemans, by the way. So they could not have been cast more perfectly. I don't know where we even found these people. They were so down, and then that ended up on the cover of the Wall Street Journal, of course. I think it's just wanted to give some background, because I feel like we've seen the results and we've seen the payoff. So it's not like, we just started doing weird things one day. It was let's push ourselves, and then that worked, and then the next thing worked, and the next thing worked, and now we get to do a Mayo wedding, and we just did a fall football Mayo denim collection, which played into kind of the fashion space as well as football, and we have some really fun stuff cooking for this fall and then into next year. So yeah,
Distracting.
The amount of entry points I just gave you.
Also
Many
kind
things.
of perfectly endemic of the culture and the attention economy. It's you can go in a multitude of directions. Pick one. No, I look at this first of all, it's I start thinking of the person who makes the cologne, and they're yeah, we're going through an experience. It's when somebody's goes to one of those candle making stores, they're oh, I'm gonna add a little hint of this. Right, great, you run with it. But it's I'm going to these little, and then I'm gonna add hints of this, and you're and somebody's just yeah, what if there's mayo in it? Of course, it just opens up to things, but it runs true to the principle that I kind of think about all the time, which is that a lot of brands can be reticent to take risk, and I think you live this, I live this. The risk is doing something bland, because then you've just spent a bunch of time on something no one's going to notice. Not to say that, but I think the other more important thing, and none of these are questions, Dakota, by the way, they're just statements. But the other thing that's important in there is that there's a strategy. Like, it might not look like, I think that's important. Like, it's not supposed to look like a strategy to the end consumer.
Yeah.
The end consumer is supposed to just be like, well, this is weird. Tell me more. But on the back end, it's going, okay, like, cool. With like the cologne, we've established that we can go into this space. Now, what other avenues are available, and how do we build off of whatever that core idea is?
100%. I love the tagline, or the phrase, like, your strategy is showing. I think it's always,
This? Yeah.
it's like being like, oh, your bra strap's showing, or like your like, it's like calling it, it's like your strategy is showing. I think I've with Super Bowl or these bigger campaigns, like it's always funny when you see those like called out, like the strategy, like you can tell the strategy line just became the tagline. But I think too, like from I'm something that I'm really passionate about being in social is being super close to the consumer. And I think when you're in deck land and ad land, like it's easy to get removed from how people are talking about brands, how people are talking about influencer and creator marketing. Like we can just get so in our own world and it becomes a LinkedIn echo chamber. And I talk about this a little bit, like advertising is now a spectator sport. So like we're all just like commenting on ads and seeing ads, and it's just this big chamber of, echo chamber of ad people. But I think like the consumer has a very and depending on the brand, the audience has a different read on what you're doing. And, from a like food and football and like they don't want to know the strategy. They don't care. And I don't care if they appreciate the strategy. All I want to know is that it's working. So I think that's something I'm just really keen on and passionate about, is like bringing the audience back into the idea. And like, I think within briefs, it's not just like we're targeting a Gen Z who likes home decor and is on a budget. Like there needs to be layers to this. And that is where I think social is so important in these more broader briefs for like earned activations, is that we are so tight and so close to the consumer and how they're speaking about the brand, the category, and culture in general, that then it makes sure that these things are landing. And that I think is part of the magic.
Well, you have to be a cultural anthropologist. Like you have to be experiencing these things and understanding the culture. Like you don't have to know it fully, but I think one of the things I admire about how you go about doing things is like you immerse yourself in like these unhinged ideas so that you probably can understand them better, if I'm inferring correctly.
Totally. I mean, I almost got married in Vegas when we did a Mayo wedding. That's how deep in it I was.
Yeah, but you're not the Saucemans.
I know.
The Saucemans are perfect. You can't compete with the Saucemans.
I wasn't even a close second. Yeah. But I totally agree. And I think just like, I also think too, being passionate about the work and really, really caring, I think there's a big difference of how invested you get. Like when there is a Mayo wedding, social's part of the brief, we're involved at the upfront, but like I can be as removed or as involved on a project in those stages because it really is like the creative, kind of like platform, and still needs to be very rooted in social. But I think like being in it and being really invested and being really passionate about it means that I was like digging in the internet and like thinking through it, like, at 11 p.m. being like, what is the like thing to crack here? And then that's where the Kareem Rama like spark came from, was just like, I was along for the ride and invested. And I think the two things that I really love in team members and like the folks on my team are great examples of this, is being really invested in the work and then also being like very online. Like you need to be, as a social strategist, I think you need to be as in it as a creative and as the, the CD who's running it, and then as online as like the audience and who we're after, and to know all the shifts and what's happening, to bring that then into our ideas and inform what we do.
Well, you have to commit to the bit. It's the same thing as like somebody who's doing improv. Like
Totally.
They're going to tell. They can tell if you're committed to it or not, right? It will not.
So
like
true.
The words don't matter as much as like, are you committed to the idea behind it? Like take the top 50 comedians that you've ever experienced. Probably the through line is that like, no matter what the bit is, they're committed to it, right?
I love that. That.
It's also why comedians don't normally want you taping their shows, because the bit changes depending on where they are. Saw Nikki Glazer recently.
I just think of everything I do as like a comedic stand-up. I just think of like, I move through life. It's like, how do I make this a stand-up set? How do I make this about me, really?
I think you strike the right balance of, I think, if we're not getting too meta, you do need to make a few things about you to get noticed. It does give you power and leverage, but yes, the terminally online part of it all, yeah, it helps, right? Not to say that you can't get these things done without it, but I think
Yeah.
it just makes things easier and more repeatable. Like it's a better barometer of success in this field. Like there's a limit. Like you can go too far down the rabbit hole, right? Just like Reddit. But like if at least you've immersed yourself in some way that you can probably skip through like 3 or 4 commonly done mistakes. I think the other
Yeah.
thing too that is important, right, is that if you're online enough, you're going to have a pretty good encyclopedic or even encyclopedic knowledge of what hasn't worked or what has, or how do I apply that somewhere else, right? Like I talk to a lot of people in advertising sometimes, and they're like, "Oh man, it's so hard to come up with ideas." I'm like, "Well, you don't have to come up with the newest idea ever. You can just have a good idea that's been used in one place and use it in a completely different other place, and just walk in the meeting and be like, brand new idea."
Well, Ablo, I think was it. His rule was
Yeah,
like 1% or 3% different. It's like make
yeah.
the thing better and make it true to you. And that sometimes is enough. I think that's like a good rule for like trending content in general is like you don't necessarily always need to recreate the wheel because that is how your audience is showing up and talking. So maybe mirror that and make sure it's unique enough for sure.
I'm so glad you mentioned Virgil. Off-White's one of my favorite brands of all time. Also, I don't get enough time to talk about shoes because I live inside this podcast box where people never see my feet. So they'll never know that I have a shoe collection. They'll just be like, "Oh, Jeff, you have a sort of decent collection of shirts." I'm like, "Yeah."
Good button downs. I always see you rocking good button down. No, I just assume that you live in Riverside. I assume that's just like
Yeah.
you are in here all the time.
Tim Miller recently was like, "Yeah, I just exist in the podcast minds." I was like, "Yeah, I'm just in this like 4 like, yeah, especially
One by one.
especially when we're recording on Friday, Dakota. On the Mayo Museum itself.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm actually becoming a podcast host. I'm doing this. This is happening in real time. Um, for the Mayo Museum
That
itself,
hero or
right? It's like my villain origin story is like he was sitting in Riverside for months. But
Riverside Gap.
right. So like you're looking at like, and you can touch on the Pizza Museum, you can touch on other things, but just in general, like what was your inclination to like this is going to work? Like what was going to be the why for people that's like, yeah, they'll pay attention?
I think for the museum, like the brief really started off with like, how do we showcase this beautiful moment when people take a bite of something with Hellman's Mayo and it's like so good that it's distracting, that you have a bit of a moment, whether it's like you do a happy dance or like you just zone out for a second. Like how do we really bring that to life? And so we were thinking through all these different ways. The team was on the creative side of just how do we play that up. And I think one was like, we're trying to make something that landed in the summer. We knew New York was probable. And so we were like, what can we do there that brings it to life that people are already, again, like what is the behaviors? So in summer in the city, everyone is going to, try and escape the heat. So they're going to museums, they're going to shows, they're trying to stay typically in New York City because it gets so hot, like out of the outdoors. So museums in that space was one thing that we had brought forward and explored. And then it just like, how it goes as you go on, like some things just really make sense and all the pieces were clicking. I think as we looked at like the extensions and then when we got to the creator portion, I was like, there's a pizza museum guy. And everyone, and Jeff, I was willing to die on that hill. I was like, I liked Cream and I like his content. He's a great dude. But I was like, this idea really needs somebody to anchor it. And he just made so much sense with that, the history of, if anyone doesn't know, the failed pizza museum that he did in New York years ago that almost bankrupted him. And it's like deep lore. It's like, if you know, it's not something that he currently still talks about a lot, but we loved that connection. He loved that connection. He's also mentioned mayonnaise on his own Subway Takes show. He mentioned Hellman's by name a while ago. This was before we partnered. So those things just started lining up and we're like, okay, how we showcase this moment is that all of these artists got distracted enough as they were making their respective art. We did source artists mostly from New York, that like are either up and coming or these amazing artists who've showed in the city as these other sort of creators and collaborators within the idea, which was really cool. And so they all created these like bespoke or had like existing pieces that were unfinished that then were shown in this museum. We had like so many people come out. We had a line down the block. I made like a silly little TikTok and like it landed on like the right side of TikTok. So all these girlies came out and said hi, which was really exciting. But so I think just, you know, as you go through the creative process, I think you can see when an idea is like really coming together, especially when you get into some of the like extensions and like you see the full thing and you're like, okay, now I see it in my mind's eye. Like I see with all of these different pieces coming together, how amazing this could be. So, and then obviously you have to sell clients on that too. So they were
right.
You know, that's important. And they were, I mean, they're the best clients. I love them so much, but they were game. So, and Cream was game. Like, it's just one of those things where all the magical pieces lined up. And I think that was part of the success. And I think when you have like, you know, it's always more fun to do it with this like community of people. So it's like Kareem and his team, and then it's the artists and their teams and their spouses, and then Earned gets involved, creators are involved, and like everyone had to come out and make content around this, which I think always helps. And that headline of, you know, we're hosting a Mayo Museum in New York City with Kareem Rama. What's there not to love? So all the pieces came together, and I think our creative team, and specifically our global ECD, Andrew Simon, who leads, you know, most of our Unilever work now, just having that really clear vision and then shepherding that through the details, making sure that vision doesn't get lost, really made that work. And it was like, it was so much fun, and it went really, really well.
Well, yeah. Also, like doing research for this, I saw the TikTok before it happened that you were inviting people to, and I'm like, yeah, that's a hill you're willing to die on. It clearly shines through. Like, you're very excited about this. Yeah, exactly. Oh, good. Now we got the podcast episode name. But like the other thing too is that these things don't work unless you have other things to pull from it, right? Like, so there's a redemption arc because of the lore, right? There, like, and I could see you selling that even from the beginning. I was like, oh, this is good. This is good. This is good. All right. Timed well, in the right spot, absurd enough to get people's attention. All of those things, right? You know, there's a new segment I want to try. It's called Jeff Pitches Dumb Ideas About Mayo. Are you ready?
Is this something we're launching today?
What? No, this would work for any podcast I've ever done in my entire life. This is, Dakota, this is universal. Obviously, as you can attest to, it applies to everything and every part of daily life.
We're fishing for a sponsorship here from Big Mayo.
No, well, one of the things I was going to say is like, in my research for this, which somebody be like, Jeff, you don't research. You just are distracted by literally everything, and you're terminally online. And I'll be like, I won't argue with you. But I do some research, and what, like, I had to like go back into the lore and go back into those things because I wasn't going to try Mayo. I clearly can't do that. So I had to get into the content side of it, right? And so then it started to spur random ideas. I'm going to throw ideas that are almost unusable at you. There's really no like, this can be call and response if you want to throw things back or just give opinion. First one. Yeah, it's
Jeff.
It's paint by wine, but with mayo. That's it.
Oh, like the wine nights.
You do a wine night, but with mayo.
Great.
Okay. Honestly, this is going to make.
As long as you think, like, I could see a mechanism where, because you're dipping a paintbrush. No. Hear me out.
Yes, you're talking yourself into it.
You're dipping a paintbrush in the paint. Same mechanism, but with French fries in mayo. Okay.
Brush is French fries. Okay, so one of the things I was thinking about when I came up with this, one of the things I was thinking about is I'm like, how can somebody truly, like, because this is part 2, we've talked before, how can somebody truly understand Dakota's mind rather than like, and how these things work? Because if you know, the first or second layer to podcasting or content is just like, hey, tell me how the thing did. Oh, it went really well because you're on the podcast? Oh, that sounds great. Things went really well. And I'm like, no, let me throw some dumb ideas. And then you're immediately off the cuff, because we didn't plan this. Just want to look dead into camera and be like, we did not plan this. But disclaimer. But it's like, okay, then you're like, okay, so the fry is the brush. Great. Okay. Coffee shop, mayo is the creamer.
Love that. Well, I mean, we need to call up Will Levis because he is king of using mayo as creamer. I love it.
Yeah. No real other process than that.
This is how it works.
Well, I'm not trying. One, I'm not going to throw really good ideas out there because that's a bad idea too. And I'm not going to throw really good ideas out there because then people are going to be tipped off by that. They're going to know what's coming. And isn't it important that there's an element of surprise to all of these?
Fair job.
Yeah.
We'll offline with the really good ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty much anytime I go on like a podcast, a speaking engagement, it's just like, these are the bad ideas just for show. Everything else is under NDA, so I can't really reveal.
Yeah, exactly. Mayo Fashion Week.
Mayo Fashion Week. We are making it happen. Yeah, so it went really well. That's all I'll say about that. Yeah, so we one of our kind of targets in terms of audience are fashion as a interest and as a passion point. And so we've kind of dabbled in this arena, but we kicked off a brief. We knew we wanted to land, fall football time frame. We wanted it to speak to the kind of like social butterflies of football. It's like they love the wags, like they love the parties. And this was a brief literally just for myself.
Yes.
And it's people that enjoy like the fun of it, that aren't so invested in the game. And they're also like the ones prepping the buffalo chicken dip. And so that was kind of who we were after. And so one of the ideas, of course, was a Mayo clothing collection. And part of like that edge was we were like, oh, this is our launch timing and where we want to hit is right around Labor Day. And there's this insight of you're not supposed to wear white after Labor Day. So what if we could help people dress tastefully?
Yeah.
And give them, a cream collection that's worth wearing throughout the whole season. And it has the Hellman's bow on it, has a really cool like Hellman's on the back of the jacket. So we have a hat, a jacket, and pants, all with upcycled cream denim, partnering with a Brooklyn designer named Zero Waste Daniel. And our hero talent is Kayvon Thibodeau on the Giants, he's a giant. He's huge, first of all, so he lives up to the name, but he's also amazing, super funny, and just like game. I loved his personality. So he and Hellman's is partnered with some NFL teams specifically, including them. So he made a lot of sense because of his kind of ties to fashion and his tunnel walks and things like that as that talent. So, and part of the, we launched and teased this like right after Labor Day and then leading into New York Fashion Week. So we knew we wanted to hit like after Labor Day into Fashion Week. We literally had a pop-up Fashion Week event in Chelsea in New York, which was very, very cool. And part of the extension, and one of my favorite parts of this, is we used wags as our kind of key influencers within this collection. So it was, NFL wags that we know and love in our feeds promoting this, wearing it. They got like custom fittings and again, like tying into that New York Fashion Week and the content that people love, showing the making of, the wags like passion for these outfits, and then had some of them wearing them at the game and then, throughout New York Fashion Week, which was really cool. So, and then part of the intent of this was like the fun of it to me from a social side was our strategy was all around like, let's just show up as a fashion brand. Like if we're going to develop a fashion line that needs to come to life on the channels. And how do we do that? We look like a fashion brand. So we changed the profile photo, bio, our highlight covers, our link in bio. We changed all the pinned content, and then literally like 20, 30 posts in a row, just literally fashion content all the way through, whether that's Wags, whether that's Kyle Smith, the fashion editor at the NFL, or Kayvon, or our own content. It was just all the way through a fashion brand, which to me was really cool to kind of translate like those codes and those cues from that community onto a mayonnaise Instagram and TikTok. So it was a lot of fun.
Well, you can't quarter ass fashion. And I mean, like, clearly you were committed to the bit.
Was that our last podcast name, by the way? Commit to the bit?
I don't know.
That
was so long ago.
No. If we're landing on the same theme, I think I like consistency. So
I like to think we're original. Like, I cannot tell you what our last one was named, but if I look back at this now and I'm like, I'm just going to bleep it every time. If that really was our last one, I'm going to be like, no, we're better than this. We'll do it again. Is there an audience that is too obscure for you to want to go after? Let me give you an example. Why isn't this a product placement with Naked and Afraid? And why isn't this helping doomsday preppers and survivalists?
If you think either of those have not come up at a brief.
Yeah. Yes. We're onto something.
I love those examples. I think too, like sometimes the niche and the very narrow can still lead to a very big idea. Like,
Oh, for
I know
sure.
we've talked it to death, but I think the Reddit example from the Michael Cerave campaign, where it was like some Reddit threads and comments that pointed to him, and it was like so small, but that little nugget can turn into something really big and really interesting. So I'll never knock a Naked and Afraid or a Doomsday Prepper audience.
It makes me regret that I didn't just start this pod by doing like Family Feud style. There's 8 answers on the board. What are the things that came up in the pitch meeting? No,
Wait,
I mean,
we need to do that. That's our next, that's our content. That's our IRL social content we'll do.
Did we just create a spin-off series in the first episode? By the way, so incredibly on brand for me to be like, hey, show just started. What if we create a spin-off immediately? Oh, Jeff, what if you focused? I'm like, well, that's tough. I'm great at getting things the first. Yeah, I am great at getting things the first 80%. It's the last 20 that I struggle with. A complete gear switch, but just in a kind of way to close. Incredibly on brand. All of these things, like, and you work with creators too. Like, all of these things are better with creators who understand culture and can have that parasocial relationship, and they're in the trenches. They know things. They're not just in this Riverside 4 box. How does that space grow? How does the creator space grow? Do you think there's a thing that currently holds it back? Is it just time, or is there something that's needed to kind of like spur like the next ladder up, the next evolution of that industry? Longest question I've ever asked. Good God.
I want to unpack. Let's unpack that, Jeff.
Please do the work for me.
I am so bullish on the creator economy. I'm, part-time nano creator myself. I have a lot of friends that are creators, and I love our creator team at Edelman specifically. They're so smart and so forward thinking, and just, using AI in ways that I above my pay grade, and they're so smart. So I love being around them. But I think the creator economy is now projected to double or triple in size in the next few years. And by 2050, it's, we've seen all those stats, but I think what's so exciting to me is that it still feels like with social, I think we've reached a point of maturity. In a lot of ways, where we've reached this sort of top of that bell curve. And I think there's now more, expertise, there's investment. Many executive teams now see the value of it. I think we've just reached a point of maturity with social and content. And I think we have not yet reached that point with creators. I think there's still so many varying levels of doing it well, understanding the value of creators and what they can bring to your organization or marketing mix. And so I think for me, when I see a team doing it well, we need more of those to kind of push this space forward. And I think B, it's exciting because there's still a lot of white space. And I think that's really interesting to me. I think in order for it to get to the next level, and maybe that maturity, is the respect and understanding of, like I mentioned, senior leadership and the way people talk about influencers. I think all of that needs to and is going to shift. I think the influencer career is still looked down upon by either traditional folks with traditional roles or that don't see the value. And I think similar to AI, I think doubting creators or, diminishing their role or how much impact they can have or being too scared of it to embrace it. I think those are mistakes. I think creators are going to be leading this next charge. So I think respect and embracing of what they can do is a necessity. And I'd say if there was if there's leadership now and they're we don't really see the value in creators, I'd be I would because it's how are we still here? So I think that's what's needed to get it to that maturity phase, but I think we will see that. And I think creator is poised actually to be even bigger than some of the call it traditional social spend when it comes to paid social, organic social. I think creators now are more trusted than brands. So I think that balance of where your content lives and who's speaking on behalf of the brand, I think we'll see the balance shift from majority brand to some creators to probably I'd say in some cases majority creators and then some brand. I think they can speak on behalf of you and endorse you better than you can.
I love that you mentioned the senior leadership part, right? That might be the part that's just time, right? It's just time for that group to become of the age that is terminally online, right? Or willing to be there. I can see that. But the other part is the shifting media factors, right? So if people are shifting away from conventional television or cable and they're going to YouTube or they're going to the other places, as that whole pot merges, then what is TV? What is entertainment? What are all these things? So it kind of comes and pulls toward them. But the other thing, and I love that point on social versus this and the maturity level of it, is it's just why wouldn't you want to engage with the person who has a really deep relationship? Like when Salish Manor gets 87,000 people to show up to a mall, you should probably take notice. But there's so many micro examples of like, okay, well, this is like the Six Flags Fast Pass to people considering our brand. Why wouldn't we do that? I mean, anybody who's ever been to an amusement park, if you're not using the Fast Pass, God help you. That is a terrible idea, right? So like, but yeah, having these integrations, having like these Fast Passes, having all of that, I think that part of it is incredibly important, right? Yeah, we'll get there one way or another, but I think the underrated part of it is that the signs are there. It's just demonstrating it or positioning it or presenting it in a place that's palatable for senior leadership.
Yeah, for sure. I think too, that's like something I think about from an internal role or from an agency role. Like, how can you, like, everything is selling and everything is educating. So what's missing if people aren't bought in yet on the value of creators and what they can do? I think like getting that, even just that baseline, like acceptance and knowledge and buy-in, like at this point feels incredibly essential to me. I think too, there's like, I was listening to a podcast about the founder from Ball Up Bangles yesterday, and it's a like very popular fitness brand. They came up in COVID and have a really great story and like great products. I love them. But she's like, we spend less on digital because our affiliate program and through TikTok Shop, like those endorsements and those creators are driving so much volume that we actually don't need to invest in these other like traditional or digital channels as much, because creators are driving like majority of our sales business. Between that and wholesale is how she was explaining it. And I found that really interesting, because there are so many ways to tap creators. Like you don't have to just say, oh, we'll just work with macro and we only want to work with Alex Earl, or we can only afford a micro for these specific beats. It's like there's so many ways to use creators at these different, like for different objectives at different points in the year and for different sort of things that you want to, I think, achieve, whether it's doing more like general kind of e-com sales, or it's something that does feel more broad. So I thought that was like fascinating to hear that such a popular, well-run fitness brand is really invested in and reliant on affiliate creators.
You made me think of a line from Macklemore that ruined his career, so I'm not going to repeat it, but he made it. No, I'm going to do it anyway. No, he's like, there's layers to
the downfall of Macklemore, you know?
Honestly, interesting enough, I stand by this. If you ever want to go down this rabbit hole, whether it's Nelly, who had a line where he's like, "You're not Russian, girl, so why are you Russian, girl?" It's like, oh no. And Macklemore had this line where he's like, "There's layers to this shit, player. Tiramisu," and you're like, "Oh no." And so for some reason, when you were thinking about that, the thing that popped in my head was like, "Oh, there's just so many different layers of creators," and then my mind went to terrible Macklemore. I can't help myself. This is horrible. I need to get out of this Riverside box.
A word association. I totally understand how you got there, because my brain works in the same fucked up way.
You. I figured you would understand, of all people. That's why you're here, to help guide me through this.
Comes from deranged word association, I think.
Yeah. Like people, like you don't need to take an edible to get to a weird place in your mind. Just get there. Dakota, to close this, I'm going to give you a choose your own adventure. You have two choices on things to convince me to do. One is convince me to go down an internet rabbit hole of your choosing, or convince me to find a gateway food that will get me to eat mayo. Your choice.
Sell me this pen is how I feel. Sell me this mayo. Do you like chicken?
Yeah. I feel like you're being a mayo mentalist right now. You're just asking obvious questions. You're like, well, do you like chicken? Like 98% of the people on earth, yes. Tell me more.
No. I actually, two things. One, I think you already eat mayo. So I actually don't need to convince you to eat mayo, because you eat aioli. Oh. I know you get spicy mayo on your sushi. I know you've had buffalo chicken dip at the tailgate. So I actually don't think that I need to convince you. I think it is you need to come to terms with yourself that you do consume mayo. I think everyone is a mayo eater, unless they have an allergy. Acceptance. We have vegan versions for those that can't consume regular. So I think everyone on this earth is eating mayo in some form, but they've clung on to this personality trait. Similar to like the word moist. Like people just hate the word moist. And it's like there's not actually, a reason. They just latched on from an early age. So I think you actually already eat mayo. I don't feel as though I need to convince you on that, is point one. Point two, I would love for you to spend some time on Rush Talk and on the side of TikTok that is college campuses. I think go down a rabbit hole. Start with, I'll find you her handle and her TikTok.
Yes.
But Reagan, I think her name's Reagan, and she went viral for her dance at Rush Talk specifically. I think it's at Alabama.
I know what you're talking about.
I find these college girls, the way they are driving culture, I'm in love with it. I'm so obsessed. And I think like I'm so bullish on college campus marketing and what is happening there. And I think they are just like such a incredible wave of creators and influencers, and they're starting so early and being themselves. So I think like would love for you to spend time in Rush Talk and just like be swept away and see where it takes you.
I love it. I'm a 1 out of 10 on knowledge of it right now, and I just want to get to a 5. I think I can get there. That's a reasonable expectation.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
also,
in the next episode of Creators Guild, circle back.
Yeah. Also, yes, sushi, 100%, knowingly, willingly, crap, fine, whatever. I'm gonna cop to it. Of course, I do. Now, do I try and get the ones without it, with the eel sauce? Yeah. But sushi is a communal experience, and what am I supposed to do? Just like be like, oh, no, I can't. I'm gonna eat 2 bites and then like, no, I'm hungry. So yeah, I think that's a perfect enough of gateway.